Mr. Lyan is on Let's Talk today, and he won the World's Best Bar thrice, Person of the Decade, World's Best Bar Team, and World's Best Bar Menu. Ryan Chetiyawardana is a cocktail bartender who opened his first bar, White Lyan, in 2013, the first cocktail bar in the world not using perishables, fruit, or even ice. That was his exploration into sustainability, which led him to open bars on the same concept. This opened the evolution to White Lyan, Super Lyan, Dandelion, Lioness, Silver Lyan, and the Seed Library. He was at the Galle Literary Festival this year, giving Galle and more a bit of a kick, spice and flair, and he's on Let's Talk today. You probably get asked this question 100 times, but what is your relationship with Sri Lanka?
Both my parents are from Galle actually, so not just Sri Lanka, but right where we are at the moment. So obviously I have that real kind of sense of connection from kind of an ancestral side. And then as I've grown, I've been able to kind of reconnect, and I've got that very much this kind of sense of wonder around the country now, both from a professional and a personal perspective.
How did the brand Mr. Lyan come to be?
The Lyan name is actually a childhood nickname, and it's very wonderful with the link to Sri Lanka for that. But it was kids rhyming Ryan and Lyan. So when I started the company with my sisters and my cousins, and we wanted something that talked about both the kind of family side of what we were doing, but also this idea that we wanted to do lots of different projects and link them together. So by being able to have a moniker and I suppose it helped as well because people are always scared of Sri Lankan surnames. They're long and nobody's quite sure how to say them. So by being able to use the Mr. Lyan aspect, it was a way to link up all of these different projects and show people that even though they're different, they were related.
What have you been showcasing in Galle, given your high-spiritedness, so to speak?
Well, we've got some masterclasses where we're bringing to life the idea of flavor and connection and how can that tell some of the emotions of a place or a person. But it's also talking about some of the philosophy behind what we do across the company, what we've done in the books or the masterclass series, and really trying to kind of talk about the idea of food and drink as being a great way to connect.
Are you working with any local spirits?
It's one of my favorite things to do. Not only working with the local ingredients, but the spirits that really translate the nature of the land. I think that's the really wonderful thing about spirits. They're partly a literal distillation of the landscape, but also the culture and the people and the approach. So, we're very, Arak to me is one of the most wonderful spirits in the world. It's a unique thing only to Sri Lanka. So working with particularly Rockland distillers, 100-year-old family distillery, but really looking at some of the products here that are born out of the countryside.
Another local spirit that's often overlooked is toddy. Yes. Do you work with that?
I do indeed. I mean, it's much harder to get back in the UK, but being here and being able to get fresh toddy is unbelievable. And actually, we were just down in here at Ketia and being able to work with toddy straight off the tree with the team at Ra, and that was a really wonderful thing to be able to do. So it's an incredible ingredient.
Your accolades, for the most part, is because you've challenged traditional cocktail norms. What set you off on this path?
The idea of curiosity was very instilled to us as youngsters. And I think it's very part of Sri Lankan kind of culture and outlook. And I think my parents were very keen for us to, of course, respect and kind of value the traditions, but also look at what else was out there and find ways to be able to pull it into the modern day, connect it to more people, and showcase it in a different manner. And I think that's been a big part of my work, is going still kind of grounded in the classics and connected to those roots, but trying to find ways of pushing not only the way that we work, but the places we work and the things that we get to kind of connect to.
So yours is a very unconventional career, let's put it that way, especially from a Sri Lankan point of view.
Yeah.
If you went and told your parents, I'm going to be a bartender, mixologist, they will say, no way. How did you make this decision to make this your career?
Well, it was a little bit accidental because I was working in hospitality while I was at university. So I knew I wanted to explore both arts and sciences, and it ended up being the perfect conduit for that. But I think I only really realized that it was what I wanted to do when I had been working in different places. I picked up a couple of awards, and I think that helped my kind of parents understand that it could be something viable. I wasn't going to end up homeless on the streets as a result of it. But I think they saw that I was, I'd been doing different studies. I'd been trying to kind of find what would be the right balance of those different interests. and they saw how much it lit me up with things. So I think they trusted me, but it definitely took a little bit of convincing at first.
I'm quite fascinated with your business model.
Yeah.
You start off your bars and right at its peak, you close it up and then you
Yes.
start all over again. Tell me, what is this business model about? How does it work?
The approach of the company has always been about trying to do good, but also to push things forwards. And we realized with some of our early projects that we'd hemmed ourselves in. We'd succeeded in what we were trying to do with them. So it was really obvious to me. It seemed so kind of clear as an idea that we needed to switch lane and move into a different direction. We've now built projects that can continue to evolve because it's costly both from an economic and a time point of view, and it's a lot of labor that goes into making something from scratch again. So we don't necessarily just want to do it to be flippant, but we do want to make sure that we're always focusing on doing something that challenges. So being able to kind of rip up the rule book or pivot is something that I think is crucial for us to be able to do to keep innovating.
Sustainability is a core theme. Like you said, your core area or your business model works on a foundation of doing good.
Yes.
But how do you bring sustainability practices into what you're doing now?
A big part of it was education. So we tried to analyze everything that was surrounding us and look where we thought we were kind of tripping up, but also where we could use our expertise, use our network, and kind of our focus to think about how we could do it differently. Because sometimes sustainability is just built out of, or waste is built out of kind of an entrenched model. So by being able to look at those things and go, well, if our goal is to do good, we can rework how these things are built up, and we can find new solutions, but we can also talk to people about it to encourage them to not see these things as barriers and to realize that it's something that we could all get involved in, and every little helps with that.
Ryan, what is your creative process when it comes to developing cocktails?
We do it first from starting with a story, because what we like to do is try and find a way to connect everybody to it, because not everybody knows about the flavors of a cocktail, the ingredients that might go into it, or what it's going to present as a profile. So if we can start with a story, there's a much more common ground for us to develop. So we look for these little hooks, these little points that we think are going to be interesting and should be interesting to anybody coming into our bars. And then we layer up from there, and we do it as a collective. So everybody is involved in the creative process, so we can brainstorm different routes, different means of processing ingredients, different sources, and then we start to fold all of these layers together. So it sounds strange, but we start on paper before we start putting together the flavors. We'll obviously use our experience and our knowledge of ingredients, classic cocktails, all of those things to be able to kind of focus it in the right path. But we very much try and represent this story, and it might be, again, a person, a place, it might be a moment and an emotion, and we try and bring that to life in a way that feels very accessible to people.
So your book, Good Together, Drink and Feast with Mr. Lyan and Friends. Now, it has this it's really an unusual book, cocktails and food paintings. What made you bring this together?
Well, one of my motivations for that was to really look at try and talk about the fact that food and drink are the same thing. So if you get some great ingredients, you think about the occasion you're going to be at, who's going to be there, what do you want to happen over the course of that evening, and you decide whether you want to manifest it as a drink or a dish. And that's the way that I love to cook. It's the way I love to host and look after my friends. So it was really taking some of that inspiration and saying, how can we build in some of the practicalities we know from being in the trade? So taking some of the world's best chefs who have that intimate knowledge of food, bringing some of the drink side into it, and really looking at what would we create for these different situations and demonstrate how the two fit seamlessly together.
So you cook as well?
I do cook as well. Actually, I started in kitchens before I was in bars, but my mum was an incredible cook, and is an incredible cook. She still is an amazing cook, and yeah, she taught us from a very young age to be able to look after ourselves, be able to cook, and really to use food to bring people together. So it really informed a lot of the way that I approach not only kind of food and drink, but hospitality in general.
So you've collaborated with world-renowned chefs, artists across the globe. What are some of the memorable moments you have? I
feel very fortunate that we've been able to do everything from working with artists, as you say. So we collaborated with Anoma, who's a Sri Lankan-based artist, and she was also a Central St. Martin's alumni. So we were able to kind of work with her as a visual artist. which is a wonderful thing to be able to try and represent. We've worked with fashion houses. Music's been a big part of what we do. Actually, I think in our first bar for our first birthday, we had Bjork come and DJ our birthday, and it was, it wasn't a big DJ set in a club or anything like that. It was a cocktail bar with this kind of music element coming in, and that was wonderful to be able to do. And I think in general, we try and approach things where we get to look at some of that storytelling. How can we find a way to develop something that feels really new?
What differences do you see in the cocktail culture in other countries as opposed to Sri Lanka?
It's one of my favorite ways to travel the world is through food and drink and looking at some of those things, because it not only represents the ingredients and the approach, but it really looks at the ways in which people gather in different ways around the world. And being able to come to Sri Lanka, hospitality is part of the culture here. It's, you go to somebody's house, a cake is going to appear at some point, but the food and the generosity around the table and the way that they share over drinks is, I think that really was instilled in me. And, that's something I love to experience. So being here, being able to visit restaurants, but also people's houses and, being able to be, hosted in that way is magical. And it's the same thing with the drinks. Being able to see people represent their favorite ingredients, their favorite ways of serving things. And it might be an arak cocktail, or it might be toddy, it might be, some of the cocktails we've been able to experience around the country. It's a wonderful showcase of that balance of the ingredients, all the flavors that are here, but also the approach to hospitality.
What is your favorite local ingredient? Of course, leaving out the arak and the toddy. What other local favorite ingredient would you use?
Tropical fruits to me are, they're mesmerizing. You taste the fruit here and you realize that everywhere else pales in comparison. So Sri Lankan pineapples are the best in the world, but the papayas, the passion fruit, like all of these things are so vibrant and alive. And I think that's, I think because they also carry so much joy to them, they're a wonderful ingredient from a mixology perspective. But also I think the spices, when I was coming back here and then, understanding the kind of vibrancy of the spices that are part of the landscape, you understand how the food feels so layered. And then when you try those same ingredients, it might be cardamom or ginger or cloves, whatever it might be, you try it back in the UK or other parts of the world, and they feel one-dimensional. So I think being able to, it's one of the things I love about being able to come back here, and it's everything can be an opportunity for an ingredient. So it might be moldy fish, it might be, cardamom, it might be the pineapple. All of these things just have such a beautiful intensity to them. And so it really inspires me, or I love to use those. And again, it might, just because they're a savory ingredient doesn't mean we can't use them in a cocktail.
Is there a cocktail project that holds special significance for you?
There's a new project that I don't think I can talk about just yet that has been very, very much kind of like a key part of our vision for many years, actually, that hopefully will be coming out later this year. But I suppose actually the first project we did, White Lyan, what it meant to stand for, what it was trying to kind of demonstrate was really important. And it gave us the platform and it gave us the blueprint to do everything that we hoped to do. So it's, it started with that, and we learned so much and we failed on so many things, but it allowed us to kind of set in motion our approach to how we work with our teams, how we develop creativity, how we work with other industries.
Would you be taking Sri Lanka's spirits out there wherever you go? Absolutely.
It's one of my favorite things to do. We showcase it in our bars, but being able to talk about it is a way to kind of translate the culture of the island. Actually, we're about to release a film about it soon. So we've been working on a way of kind of talking about arak and talking about the fact that it only comes from here and it's this wonderful historic spirit, and trying to find a way of conveying all of the multitude of stories that have linked into its kind of creation, inception, and the way that it's kind of been part of the culture, to help people everywhere in the world be able to kind of enjoy it and understand it better.
Thank you, Ryan. Lovely speaking with you. May your spirit continue.
Thank you so much.
Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Remember to subscribe, follow and like us for more.